A nurse walks in. She's basically like, you've had a motorbike crash and we're going to chop your leg off. And I was like, pause. Can we at least do this on Google Translate? Because like, that's all well and good you telling me this, but
that's a high stakes message. I want to make sure I got that right.
I said to my dad, put an update on my Instagram and let my friends know what's going on. And the video that he uploaded across like all platforms is now on like fucking, I don't know, like 70 million views or something stupid. So it was a lot more of my friends that just viewed it.
This is Creator, the podcast from Matador Network. I'm your host, Ross Borden, and I believe creators are the future of all global advertising. So join me as I sit down with top creators to hear about how they got started, the challenges they've overcome, and the tips you need to become a full-time creator. All right, we're back. We're back with another episode of Creator, the podcast. Today we have Luke Tarrant joining us from London, England. And Luke, please introduce yourself.
Well, you're right. I'm sat in London, England. My name's Luke. I've been invited on this podcast. It's called Creator, and it's quite funny because the brief which I read said it was to get on like top creators and talk about their journey into making content and how they've like turned their passion for travel into a content making business. Whereas that's not really me. I accidentally grew an Instagram following through smashing my leg off on my motorbike while I was in Colombia. So in terms of any advice I can give people on making content, it would just be have some sort of tragic accident and tell people about it. So that's probably my best bit of advice.
So let's go before the accident, because I discovered you after post accident, and I was like, what an incredible story. So we'll get into that in a minute. But like, it sounds like you were an adventure traveler before the accident. So tell us about what you were doing, in your life and in your travels before the accident in Colombia, and then we'll get to all that after.
Yeah, exactly. So my passion has always been travel, and well, I've got two or three passions in life. Big one's travel. I just love experiencing new places, people, culture, food, whatever I can experience. I want to do it at least once. That's my mantra on life. So there's that, and there's also motorbikes. And I managed to sort of marry the two up into basically just motorcycle travel. And I spent the last roughly 2 years on my motorbike, just traveling around. I've been all over. I did the trip I crashed on, I was going from Texas down to Antarctica, but I've previously driven around lots of Asia on my motorbike. I've been through Australia, large parts of Europe, but unfortunately, the trip which I crashed on was going through the Americas.
So this is like long haul, what do they call it? Overland mountain, overland,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So, these are like a mix of real roads, dirt roads, anything, you can get across. And so what was your first big overlanding trip that you did?
First big overlanding trip, because what I used to do, how I even got into motorbikes, when I would do a little trip, so say I was going to, when you're like a teenager and you go to the parts of Asia which everyone travels to, I'd always rent a two-wheeled vehicle. That's how I got into it. When I was like a kid at home, there was not a chance my mum was ever going to let me have a moped when I was 16. So when I was like just about old enough to get away, we'd go and we'd rent mopeds and whatnot and get around, and like that's kind of where the love for motorbiking and travel started. It all came at the same time. That sort of just developed over time, where every time I would go anywhere, I'd rent a bike. Even if it was a 2-week, 1 week weekend holiday, I'd always rent a bike and do it on my bike. So that kind of naturally picked up to the point where then I did my first like big, like starting one place, finishing another, pack the bike up, everything is on the bike, was probably like the classic Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh, that route, which is an amazing route. And I absolutely loved that. But to be honest, every holiday I've ever done since I've been old enough to do holidays by myself has been in some way with a motorbike.
I've never been to Vietnam, but it seems like it would be like motorbike would be the mode of transport that
Oh,
you take on like a cross country.
yeah, if you did that trip in a car, it would be an entirely different trip because I mean, you would just be sat in traffic all day. Like the way the traffic system works in Vietnam is just most aggressive winds, and you just push through the like swarm of mopeds and little 125s.
Yeah. I've seen
And I was,
videos. It's insane. Those intersections with like
yeah,
5,000 mopeds in one intersection.
if you want to cross the road, you just walk into it. You just start walking, and then the traffic will naturally make its way around you.
And so when you're doing, I mean, what sounds like would be amazing creator content for people to follow along, but it sounds like you weren't even really focused on that. Were you even making content when you were in your early traveling career on these bike
Nah,
trips?
no. To be honest, I was just doing them for myself. I I've always had a bit of a negative view on social media. To be honest, like I've always viewed social media as a platform for people just to share the best bits of their own lives and make everyone else feel jealous about it. And to be honest, I was just doing them for myself. I didn't need to share it. Now I wish I had filmed it all because I would have so much content I could make now. It's
Yeah.
I've got snippets of stuff which I use quite regularly to like link in with videos about my recovery and stuff. But yeah, I didn't film much of it, and I was quite happy doing that. To be honest, it wasn't really something even on my radar because until I find most people that have a platform like a Instagram or TikTok or what YouTube whatever, they've started up. Um, Not necessarily by accident, but they've had one or two videos that have gone viral, and then they've gone, "Oh wait, one second, I could actually do this as a thing," and that's kind of what's happened to me. I've just accidentally ended up in this position where I've now got a couple of platforms with like hundreds of thousands of people watching my stuff, and I now may as well use it for the travel side as well. Like
Yeah.
it's
But
happened.
it's a fair point. It is everyone's highlight reel of their life. And you don't,
Yeah,
it just seems like everyone has a perfect life if you live on just basing how people are doing off their Instagram or
yeah.
their TikTok. So I totally agree with you on that. But so all right. So you've done these trips. You didn't really give a shit about social media. You were just doing this stuff for travel and adventure and on the bike. Then let's talk about the trip that really changed your whole trajectory in your life. What was the original itinerary for that trip
So the
or the route that
itinerary,
you were taking?
yeah, I mean the itinerary was honestly just go where I wanted. Like it wasn't. I didn't have it. People always say, "Oh, what was your plan?" I was like, I didn't have one. Like I
Not
just
having a
sort of,
plan was the plan.
yeah. But that was the beauty of it because like sometimes I'd intend on going somewhere for 2 days, and I'd end up there for a month. Like I can tell you number. Like I'd stay with locals and stuff. But the rough loose plan was fly to the US somewhere and acquire a motorbike and just head south. That was like my loose plan. And over the next roughly 10 months, I was just weaving around. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. Went into Belize, into Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, like every country in Central America. I
Amazing.
flew my I flew my bike from Panama across to Colombia,
All
and
right. The
then
Darien Gap.
the
Skip
Darien Gap,
that.
yeah, yeah. I might be
Yep.
going back there actually soon, but that's a different conversation. But and I jumped on a small boat and did the boat. I don't know if you been to that part of the world. I imagine you probably
I've been to
done.
Colombia a bunch of
Yeah,
times, but I've never crossed the Darien
yeah.
Gap.
So well, you can. There are companies where the locals run little small boat services. So I spent 5 days hopping to island from Panama towards Colombia, staying on the San Blas Islands. Like it was just you sleep
Beautiful.
in, yeah, you sleep in hammocks, you're watching the sea. Like they'll catch some fish and ceviche it up. Like it just was amazing. Landed in like the port of Capugana, I think it was called in Colombia. Picked my bike up, went to Venezuela, back to Colombia, crashed my motorbike, and then now I'm here. So
How is, before we get into the crash, and I
yeah,
think you said you're near Medellin, but how is Venezuela? It's a place that almost
yeah,
no Americans go. I tried to go a
yeah.
couple years ago, couldn't get a visa. How
No,
was that experience?
honestly, it was my favorite and my least favorite place I've been. Tr- I truly like experiences and travel that are off the beaten path. I'm not. I know it's a bit of a cliche thing to say. Like everyone nowadays thinks they love being off the beaten path, but genuinely, Venezuela is no one goes there. Like mainly people can't go, but also people don't want to go there because it's just so there's so much political instability. It's very poor. Everyone, not everyone. I think like I don't know I'm going to murder the stats. A lot of people are walking to the US. Don't know what percentage, but it's high. Like to the point where even when I was driving through Mexico, I'd see caravans of thousands of people walking from Venezuela to the US, and it's kind of sad to see. But what it does also have is unbelievable nature. Some of the mountains are insane. The people are genuinely lovely. And if I stopped on my motorbike anywhere, I'd have almost immediately minimum like 15 lads. Like, what are you doing here? This is
Yeah.
like people told me, for example, people told me stories that I stayed with about the time a German person came to their town 5 years ago. Like
Yeah.
that level of
That
like
level of rarity that
yeah.
you're the exotic import for
Like
any of these
honestly,
stops.
this was before and this was before anyone had a clue I was from social media. I reckon maybe 10 times a day I was taking photos of people. Like I've got loads of photos because when they take a photo, they'll be like, "Oh, God, I'll have one as well, I'll have one as well for my phone." So Venezuela is like Mountain Road, a Arepa, and then just like me and 10 lads, and then the same thing the day after, Mountain Road, a Arepa for dinner, me and 10 lads. Because every day I was just, and I was also using it as an opportunity to practice my Spanish. But yeah, it was an awesome experience, but also kind of sad, just hearing some of the like personal stories of people who have had family just in bad situations, and yeah, it's a tough
Yeah.
one.
It's got a reputation for being really dangerous, and I feel like those are usually overblown when you hear about somewhere
Yeah,
being dangerous. Did you feel like
massively.
Venezuela was legitimately dangerous?
No, no.
No.
What I would
Yeah, I
caveat
didn't think so.
what I would massively caveat that with is I'm not sure that part of my brain works because like it's probably the reason I'm sat here with one leg. But in terms of like if I ever get around thinking, oh, I don't think I've ever walked around thinking, oh, this is dangerous. I'm just like, this is wicked until it's not. But Venezuela, I didn't feel danger. Like the people were lovely, and even in Colombia, I crossed into Venezuela from a place called Cucuta, and in Cucuta, I mean, Cacuta's not got the best rep itself, to be honest. But everyone in Cacuta was like, you cannot cross. Like the Colombians, it wasn't. It's not just like
Yeah,
Western. It's not just like Western media propaganda. It's like the people in Colombia were like,
they
you're
were trying
making
to
a
warn
mistake.
you.
Yeah, they're like, you're making a mistake. I remember the woman that stamped my motorbike out of Colombia was like I've got like sort of like motherly maternal vibes. And she was like, if you were my son, I would be nervous. And I'm like, well, my mum probably is nervous, but she's not aware I'm going to Venezuela, so it's fine.
Oh
But
man,
no,
well that's
honestly,
good to hear. That's good to hear that it didn't
you get
feel
in there, it's
like you.
fine. It's like everything.
Yeah,
Every time someone's like, oh, don't go there, it's dangerous. You get there and it's not. It's just
yeah,
there will obviously be dangerous parts of any country. There's dangerous parts of London. You walk around at night in London in a dodgy part, and you might get robbed or someone might nick your phone, whatever. But it's just part of it. And like, if you live your
yeah.
life in fear of traveling, you'll end up just going to hostel after hostel in the hotspots that everyone goes to, and you won't properly experience the place. But anyway,
Exactly.
that's
Totally
my
agree.
rant over.
So then you come out of Venezuela, and I assume that's when something bad happened on the
Yeah.
road near Medellin. So tell us about like the firsthand account. I'm sure this is a story you've had to tell a whole bunch of times, but for those who are not familiar, tell us what happened.
I don't get bored of telling it because, to be honest, like I'm still wrapping my head around it myself. It's pretty recent. It was only 8 months ago. So obviously I came back into Colombia from Venezuela. I spent another 2-3 weeks up north in North Colombia, and then I was like, right, I need to drive back down south to Medellin. I had a couple of things I was planning on doing doing to my bike in town, and then I was going to head to Ecuador. And I set off really early one morning. Stopped off for petrol at like 5:30 a.m. I probably left at like 3:34. I don't know why I left so early that day. I just got up and started riding. And I don't remember the crash itself, but I just remember having this like sheer panic. I've no idea what it was about. Was there an animal on the road? Was there a truck? Was there just a bit of oil? No idea. I cannot
Wow,
remember.
wild.
Yeah,
Wild. So
I
you actually
absolutely
don't
no
even
idea what
know
caused it.
exactly what the cause of the crash was.
No idea. I've got no idea. I don't know who found me. I don't know
Damn.
really anything. I've got a slither of memory of like waking up in, I call it a ditch, but I don't again really know if it was a ditch, like kind of away from the road. And I remember somebody being there. If he was sat next to me now, wouldn't be able to tell you. Like I'd be like, never seen him in my life. I just remember there being someone's presence there. And then maybe it was him that found me, or who knows, but I ended up in somewhere near the crash site, and I remember there being a wooden roof, thinking to myself, this can't be a particularly good clinic if it's got a wooden roof. And I don't think it was. I think I was in like the Andes Mountains, so it wasn't like a proper hospital. And then
Right.
and then I ended up in a different part of Colombia, hour and a half north. Again, no idea how I got there. Because I don't have a police report or anything. This is just like, there was no one with me. I've just got these like snippets of memory.
Do you think you were going like in and out of consciousness between the crash site and the local whatever clinic and then like the trip to the hospital? Or do you think you were like awake that whole time, but from the concussion or whatever you had going on, that it's just gone from your
I
memory?
don't know. When I try and deeply think about it, I get this weird nervous feeling. It's like my body's going, "Don't go there, mate. Wait, like why'd you care? Just leave it where it is." Almost
Damn.
like there are plenty of theories on this, and obviously I've read about some of them because people send them to me. But some people say that when you have a huge trauma, you can sometimes your body can block it out. Like it might be that the memories are in there and they've just been suppressed by something else. But at the same time, I had a head injury. I don't have any lasting damage. I'm not. I don't think so anyway. But I had bruises all over my face from like where I had full kit on, full motorbike kit, including my helmet. But the force of something hitting my head caused me to basically have a motorbike helmet mark on my face. So I did hit
Damn.
my head. So I probably was also concussed. I was concussed, and I had a mild head injury. But who knows, man? But I'll be honest, I've made peace with it. Like it's not. I immediately made peace with it. I was just like, well, this has happened, and um,
So
I
you
can't.
wake up and you're in like presumably like a more legit hospital, and
Yeah,
then what
yeah.
happens?
So this is when I properly wake up. So I wake up in this more legit hospital up north in north further where I was. And I remember waking up and it's my wallet, but I had my phone on my chest like that. And I was like, oh, this isn't great, is it? I'm looking around, I'm like totally naked, which is a bit weird. Um, and then a nurse walks in, and it's obviously all in Spanish. Like my Spanish is good enough, but it's not amazing. And
Right.
she's basically like, you've had a motorbike crash, and we're gonna chop your leg off. And I was like, well, you're
She said
not,
that in Spanish or English?
in Spanish. And I was like, pause. Can we at least do this on Google Translate? Because like that's all well and good you telling me
That's a
this,
high
but
stakes. That's a high
yeah,
stakes message. I
yeah,
want to make sure I got that right. Did you
yeah,
say you're going to
exactly.
take my leg?
Yeah,
Oh my God,
I
dude.
knew what she was saying, but I was also like, let's have it in Google Translate to make sure. Then obviously I could probably go back into Google history and find it, but so yeah, we're gonna chop your leg off. And I was like, well, you're not gonna chop my leg off. Can I speak to a doctor, please? Por favor. And she goes, she's like, there is no doctors here. There's no doctors here till tomorrow at 8 a.m. and he's coming in to chop your leg off. And I'm like, oh fucking hell, this is not good. So anyway, I get on like I said, I've got my phone. So I picked my phone up, and I don't know if how many of my videos you've seen. You might have seen this in one of them. I picked my phone up, and I'm literally like, right, well, let's try and get myself to like a better hospital in Medellin. So I go on my Instagram story,
maybe
and I'm like,
second opinion. Get a second opinion before
yeah,
they take the leg.
so far I've got a nice Colombian nurse saying, "Oh, we're going to chop your leg off," and I'm like, "Well, let's get a proper medical professional to come in and talk to you about it."
Oh my God,
Anyway, so I get on my phone and I'm like, right, I have crashed my motorbike. I'm in North Colombia. If anyone can help me get to Medellin, please say now. And then through the power of the internet, a lovely bloke helped me pay for a random like private taxi that was in a town 4 hours away to come and pick me up from this hospital. I couldn't do it myself because you needed like a Banco Colombia account and all this stuff, which obviously I didn't have. Anyway, I was like, this ambulance ain't turning up, and I've obviously paid that guy back and everything's in, but the ambulance turns up like 4 hours later, which was like a surprise to me, to be honest. And we spent 10 hours, well, I think it was about 10 hours, driving through the night, through the Andes Mountains to Medellin. So we get to Medellin.
Damn.
We get to Medellin by sunrise.
How are you managing the pain on this trip? Are you like morphine? What do you have?
Nah.
Like you're clearly like brutally injured.
No, I was honestly, I was just raw dogging it in the back of the ambulance. To be honest, I was just fucking just like go into Medellin. No, I didn't have any morphine or nothing. I was like fully awake. But to be honest, I was like, when you're in, I can't really explain it. If I was sat here saying this to myself 9 months ago, 8 months ago, whatever it was, I'd have been like, obviously you'd be in a bad way. But I was just like in survival mode. I wasn't worrying about anything. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't upset. I was just like, right, let's get to Medellin. Let's do this thing. Like it's time to sort this out. Wasn't anywhere emotional about it. Get to Medellin, the doors of the ambulance swing open, and then my best mate Jack's there because he was in Colombia as well. But we sometimes did separate little side missions, and then we'd meet up again after. So we weren't actually together at the time of the crash, but he flew to Medellin to meet me there.
Wow!
And he's like, "Oh, bloody hell, yeah." So anyway, we're going to the hospital in Medellin, and they're like, "Oh no, like we do need to chop your leg off." Like. That wasn't a joke.
The nurse was right. The assessment of the last nurse was accurate.
It turns out apparently that the place I was, they could have got a half decent doctor anyway, but whatever. The point was, if they chopped my leg off there, I would have always had what if hanging over my head. Like, what if I could have saved it? And even when I got to Medellin, I was like, guys, you need to try and save my leg. Like, they were like, we're going to chop off your leg. And I was like, no, you're not.
What was the medical prognosis of? Was there like clotting or sepsis in the leg? Like what? Like why did? Or was it just so badly broken? They're like, we need to remove your leg.
I've seen a X-ray of my leg. It doesn't look like there's any bones in it. It just looks like it's been crushed. It's just been mashed up. However, you mentioned sepsis, so they ended up. For a day or two, they tried to save it. They put a cage on it, like an external cage that fixes it in place. Basically, because I was being a stubborn idiot, and I was like, "You ain't chopping it off. Do something else." So they put a cage on it. I think they knew they were going to chop it off by that point, but they were just like, "All right, we'll keep him happy."
We're gonna go through the motions for this guy just to make him feel better.
Like, by that point, I was getting like drugged up as well on all the stuff. But my mate Jack said I was just being so stubborn. They'd come in, they'd be like, "Right, we need to do this," and I'm like. Nah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so anyway, they put the cage on it, and then about a day later, they're like, all right, mate, you've had your cage. And they basically, by that point, said, if we don't chop your leg off, you're going to die, mate. And I was like,
yeah, exactly. At some point, they're like, this is your whole life that you're actually risking now if we don't remove the leg.
And whether it was through that or like, who knows what, but they chopped my leg off, and I was fine about it because I maybe hadn't processed it, or I was just still in that survival mode. And I put up because all my mates were like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like we're all in England, stressing out their mind. They think I'm about to die and all this. So I put up a
And you
story.
talk to your family? Are you like, are
Yeah,
you
yeah. I talked to my
live reporting to your parents and they're
Yeah,
freaking
sort
out?
of.
Like,
Like I told my parents by that point were obviously aware of what was going on. They were at home trying to sort out the travel insurance. But Paul, I think they were probably having a worse time than I was. Um, but they sorted out the travel insurance. They came to Medellin, but it literally as they got to Medellin, I'd had my leg chopped off, and within about 12 hours, I had like mad sepsis. Went into
oh
like septic
shit.
shock. My all like half my organs were shut. My kidneys shut down. My lungs stopped working. My lungs like filled with fluid. Basically, it went from like the leg being the biggest deal ever to no one cared about the leg. The leg was like the least important thing on the menu.
Damn,
Um,
dude.
yeah, so they put me in critical care. Put me on a ventilator, and then that was probably the worst bit, to be honest, because that was a bit that nearly killed me. The actual sepsis and all that, rather than the leg. Um, so yeah,
Wild.
it was pretty
So,
mad.
so how long were you, do you know how long you were out when they were amputating your leg?
Like unconscious while they chopped it off.
Yeah, like the surgery that
Well,
they
the
removed
the
it.
trouble was I had such bad sepsis. They did it 8 times, so they kept chopping more off.
Oh
So
my God,
yeah,
dude.
yeah. So like for the over the course of about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, every day, the day would go like this. I'd have to fast because I was potentially going to have surgery. Bear in mind, the leg was bad, but I also had plenty of other injuries. I still do have plenty of other injuries, but my other leg was snapped through the skin. My collarbone was broken. My hand was broken. I basically was lying there covered in bandages, all 4 limbs, and my actually 3 limbs, and my left arm was the arm they use for like the cannulas. So all the things that inject you with the constant fluids and antibiotics and all that stuff. Because I had sepsis, they were pumping me full of stuff to the point where my hand swelled. My hand was like 3 times the thickness of what it normally is because it was just so full of like all the fluid. Um, but yeah, they put me in. They put me in like every other day to have a surgery because they had to chop off. They come in, they undo the bandages, and bear in mind, it wasn't proper sewn up. It was like my leg had just been like chopped off and then wrapped up with bandages. So they come in, they poke around all the tissue, try and see what was infected, and then take me in for surgery. And annoyingly, they had to chop off more leg, which means I've now got a shorter stump and would be ideal for walking. But it is what it is. Like I can't. I'd rather have my old foot back. Do you know what I mean?
Holy shit, man. I feel like
Yeah.
I need a drink hearing this story. This
Yeah.
is
For
intense.
some
So
water.
they literally took more and more of your leg off to fight because they were running from the sepsis. They were trying to
Yeah.
get you, just make sure you didn't die.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So you once you're out of the woods, you're out of, critical condition at least. I assume did your parents come and come to the hospital and like your mate is there already and like what was it like waking up from this fucking insane ordeal?
Well, that links quite nicely into the theme of the podcast, into my creator origin story, because I I woke up obviously the first time in the hospital up north, but the second time I feel like I kind of realised what was going on was during the critical care sepsis period. By which point my parents had arrived in Colombia. It was my mum's first long haul flight, and honestly, like she'd have been terrified going to Colombia anyway, let alone under these circumstances. But I had a ventilator that because obviously my lungs weren't working, I couldn't breathe myself. The machine had to do it.
Right.
Um, but I remember it was like strapped to my face, and it'd be like really aggressively like shoved air in your lungs. I remember it really clearly. But I was so off my face and all the like they'd induced me into this like weird kind of like half awake state. Um, I was just in like crazy town, to be honest, in my brain. But then all of a sudden I became aware of the fact I couldn't breathe myself, and I tried to catch my own breath. But as I tried to catch my own breath, the ventilator like took a breath for me, and I just had this like total feeling of like nausea come over my body, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then I was sick into the ventilator, and my dad was there, and he saw it, and he just yoinked it off my face. Obviously, all the alarms are going off. doctors are coming in, da-da. And while they're sorting it all out, it kind of like sobered me up, like the process of like being sick and all this, like it kind of pulled me out of the like delirious
The
state I was in.
days. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, what on earth, man? And my dad in that moment said, everyone you know, even the people you don't know, are like asking me, your mum, your friends. Because bear in mind, by this point, like I'm not keeping people updated on my Instagram story or anything like that. And by the way, I didn't have a big Instagram follower. I had just my friends. I had 1,400 Instagram followers, whatever it was. Like I didn't have a platform. It was just
Right.
that was what I used to share my pictures from being away with my mates.
Right.
I said to my dad, look, you don't have to reply to everyone. You're never going to be able to. You've got my phone. You know the code. Just put an update on my Instagram and let my friends know what's going on. And the video that he uploaded across like all platforms is now on like fucking, I don't know, like 70 million views or something stupid. So it was a lot more of my friends that just viewed it. But yeah. So basically, that's how.
Oh my God, dude!
And then that's how this whole new crazy journey started. So
you
madness.
woke up, or you came out of this daze as you're recovering. You're like, okay, life with one leg. I'm gonna let that sink in.
Yeah.
But I survived. At least I almost died. Really, almost died.
Yeah.
And now I have you woke up to like all these new people
Yeah.
following this tragedy that had just happened to you.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because it was like different levels of bizarre. I mean, that's a really fucking crazy thing to happen.
Yeah, but at the start, like it didn't really like the Instagram thing and all that was just it was just so irrelevant. Like I still just used it when I could use. So by the time I was out of critical care, my dad started doing updates. By the time I was out of critical care, I could use my left hand, but I had to hold my arm straight because if I moved my arm at all the alarms would go off on the cannulas. And so I was basically just like this, and I'd use my phone and I'd keep people in the loop. But it was just to keep my friends in the loop because I couldn't reply to anyone's messages. It'd probably take me 2 hours of like trying to type like that, write one thing on my Instagram to let the lads know what was going on. And I saw like the follower number like ticking up, which was, I didn't even really think about it, to be honest. I was like, oh, look at that. Some randoms are like looking at my page because it hadn't got to the level it is now. But it was when I got home and we've missed a big chunk of stuff out in that time. But towards the end of my hospital stay in England, because I ended up being in England hospital for ages as well, the first day they took me out as like my sort of like intro back to society. Like, let's go and see how he copes on the fucking public tube and whatever.
Right.
So they gave me by that time I had my first basic prosthetic leg. I just got it. I couldn't walk. It was my first time back in London in months, over a year. So that's weird in itself. And then because of all the stuff that was going on, like a production company had picked up on it and were like, at some point you're going to want to make a film, get the footage now. And I was like, all right. So they would come for important things. So like the first time I got back on a tube and all this stuff's filmed there ready to go when it's eventually needed. But the production company, there are 2 cameramen film me. So I'm in London. I'm trying to learn to walk. I'm getting back on a tube for the first time. I've got cameramen shoving cameras in my face. And then this is the first time I'm out in public. I forget that actually on the other end of these Instagram videos are real life people. And there's people on the tube coming up to me going, mate, I've seen you on Instagram.
I've seen you.
Oh, and I'm like,
how bizarre, dude. That is so bizarre. Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on right now?
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. And I literally was just like, I go to bed at night and I still would do it now. I have a dream and I'm just walking down the beach, fixing my motorbike, putting oil on my chain, wandering about, getting some food with like 2 legs, just doing my normal thing, my life, which has been my life for ages. And then I wake up and I'm in this fucking weird reality that feels like that's the dream. That's honestly the only way I can describe it. It's just bizarre.
Wow, dude. That is quite a series of events. Well, first and foremost, I'm thrilled for you that you survived. I'm happy to see that. I mean, I don't know if you can say that having a platform now is a good thing that came out of this. It's kind of a bizarre way of thinking about it, but certainly I'm sure you've been an inspiration to a lot of people who are either, probably in the same situation or could be in the same situation have to go through this because you've really documented all the after effects. And I have to say what I really, what I loved about the videos that I saw on your channel is that like, you have just a really positive attitude. You're not like, oh, woe is me. My life is ruined. I lost my leg. You're like, well, you know, I got one good leg left and I'm getting a new prosthetic today and I'm pumped on that and I can still travel and spend time with my family and friends. So, you know, congrats to you on surviving and congrats on the having such a positive attitude about this new stage of your life.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
After like, you know, the dust settled, so to speak, like you're back in England, your condition is stable, you're out of the hospital. Maybe you have these guys following you around with cameras documenting your first couple weeks. Like, what are you doing now? Are you basically like, this is your you know, new job? You know, are you full-time creator now, or how has life changed other than the physically?
Physically, yeah. So, I mean, when you said earlier, has this been a good thing that's come out of it? It has been a good thing because, like, the trajectory of my life's changed in a physical sense. But now I mean, we wouldn't be sat here having this conversation unless it was because of Instagram. Like this, it wouldn't happen. It's just this one tiny example out of basically every day, which is like all the things I'm now doing, all the like even the trips I've got planned coming up. Like I just did a trip to Canada with my dad. I took my dad as my plus
Saw
one.
that.
Yeah, the Vancouver Tourism Board and the Whistler Tourism Board like did sort the whole thing out. Like the people are like taking me on trips. I'm going to China in a month or a month and a bit with Intrepid Travel. Like I've now got the opportunity to travel as like a job, which is something which is I guess would have been my dream before. So it is a positive thing that's come out of it. But yeah, I don't quite know exactly where I want to take all of this because like I don't want to be like a straight content creator forever. Like that's not really my thing. Like traveling, yeah, talking about it, amazing, but just churning out videos forever, I don't think that'd be my thing. I think I always have the social media there and I like interacting with people on it. And if people take stuff from my videos, great. But I want to have other projects like I mentioned to you. I mentioned the trips I've got planned, but I've got like some little short films we're talking about making initially. Like I'm doing a skydiving license soon. They're going to come film that. I'm getting back on a motorbike in New York with this charity. They'll come film that. And we'll turn them into like maybe potentially, hopefully, like brand sponsored short films. That's the plan in the immediate term. Potentially my own podcast. I've had a few offers of people like wanting to set things up. Maybe do that. People talking about books. Like there's a lot of different ways of like spreading the word. But up until now, my full-time job has just been recovery. To be honest, like
Sure.
I've spent almost every weekday at some sort of appointment, whether it be for my
Physical
collarbone,
therapy and
yeah, like prosthetics, physio, collarbone, leg, other leg, hand, like all that stuff. It's just taken up all my time, and now it's starting to chill out a bit. I'm getting better on my prosthetic. I'm trying to work out what the next route is, but I don't think it's going to be pure social media.
yeah. Was it ever like, were you ever worried about like people kind of exploiting your accident when you're like, hey, you should write a book or you should do small short films or we should make a show and bring it to a streaming service or you should do speaking engagements? Like, what was that like? Were you cool with those people or was some of those advances like, whoa, just let me heal first before you
Um,
pitch me on something?
I'll be honest. I think I've always said like my goal in life is to have an interest in life. I'm not that bothered about the. I made a quote before, which a load of my mates took the piss out of me for, but I said I'm not bothered about having I'm not bothered about having loads of money or having a hot girlfriend. I just want to have an interest in life, and I got quoted saying that, and my mates were all like, "Oh, he's done a hot girlfriend." But the point I was trying to make is like as long as my life's interesting, even if it's a bit shit at times with the leg or whatever, I'm satisfied because I'm living within my sort of like boundaries of what makes me tick. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the moment, and when people have been coming to me saying, "Oh, do you want to make a film? Do you want to do a book? Do you want to do?" For me, that's quite interesting because that's not something no one's ever come to me before and said, "Hey, mate, like, do you want to make a book?" Like that for me is a new thing, and I find it kind of fascinating that people even want to like chat to me about it. So I actually embraced it more than anything. I don't think I've never felt exploited, because if I felt exploited, I'd just be like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, yeah. And there's definitely an element of, there was a period kind of recently where I felt like the sharks were circling a bit. There was a lot of people who were like trying to partner with me on this and this and this and this. And I never really knew what to do because this is a whole new world to me. But really, it's just a new, interesting chapter, which I'm quite enjoying embracing and seeing where it goes.
So going forward now, you're going to China. That's like you're going on these trips. What's next for the story, this amazing story that you've miraculously survived? Like, are you doing a show or short films, or like if anyone's going to watch out for that, should they just follow you on Instagram and TikTok, or what's your plan for the next version of this?
Well, the Instagram and TikTok will always be there, and always be where I probably share the news about stuff. My kind of pipe dream goal, like the goal which I'd love to end up doing, is I'd like to, I will finish off the motorbike trip which I crashed on. So I'll go back to Colombia, exactly where I crashed, on a motorbike, and then ride the rest of that trip down to Antarctica. I've had a lot of people in the sort of like film world saying, "Oh, we want to make that into a film." So, but I know there's a bit of a stepping stone from going from putting things on social media to making a proper film. And in that gap, I'm going to potentially, one thing I've literally been working on today with film directors and brands and stuff is working out if brands are happy to sponsor like 5 to 10 minute, maybe a bit more short films that will sit on YouTube about the adventures I do and leading up to that big final one. So like in New York, like I said, in July, I'm getting back on a motorbike for the first time. I'm learning to ride it with one leg. Obviously, I can't change gear on my left anymore. I'll film the skydiving stuff. I'll like just film these little films and eventually do the Big Daddy, which is finish the trip.
Yeah, so that was my next question. Actually, I was like, will you ever ride a bike again? And I had a sneaking suspicion it would be yes, but that's such a cool idea to go back to the scene of the crime. And ride from there down through Patagonia. I mean, that's going to be epic.
But also just like, not only that, all the stuff around it, like go back to the hospital. Like I'm in contact with a lot of the people in Colombia that looked after me in the month I was in hospital there. Go to the place of the crash and see if someone has a clue what happened. Like there's a police station nearby. I'd like to go and see if they got a report. Just go and try and work out what happened. And I think it will be quite a emotional thing. Like even getting back on a motorbike, like I'm obviously saying I'm going to do it, but the whole reason I love to travel on a motorbike was because I wasn't even thinking I was riding the bike. I'm just in a flow state going through the mountains. Now I might be on it thinking every corner I'm going to fall off. And it's just, there's a whole process I need to go through. And I'm going to go through it. If I'm going to do it anyway, someone may as well come film it if it can turn into something cool. And that's my view on it, basically. But let's see what happens.
I love it, man. I'm really excited to see what comes next for you. And
I appreciate that.
And that's, I love all these ideas. And I love the courage. I totally feel what you're saying about like, you don't even know how you're going to feel when you're back on the bike. If all your confidence that you used to have is like shattered and you have to build your confidence again because around every corner you're like, oh fuck, this is like PTSD.
I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Luke, thank you. And just for listeners, just to make sure they can find you, tell your handles on IG and TikTok and anywhere else.
Yes, Luke, LUKE _ Tarrant, TARRANT. That's just my name. It's on all of
Luke Tarrant. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, nice Luke.
One. Awesome. Cheers, Ross.
Creator the podcast is produced by Matador Network. We are a leading global travel publisher focused on travel and adventure. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe. Every week, I interview a new top creator. New episodes are released every Tuesday on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere podcasts are found. Thanks for listening.